Kindly be seated. A pleasant morning to everyone. I bid you welcome to March edition of the Premier's monthly press conference. As you are aware, these press conferences are designed to bring a sense of openness, a sense of accountability to the Nevis administration. It was a campaign promise, and that promise has been kept. This morning press conference would be conducted as follows. The Premier will give updates from the different ministries, after which members of the press corps will be given the opportunity to ask their questions. In so doing, we kindly ask that you give your name and the media house that you represent, just in case we have to give additional information at the end of this press conference. You're kindly asked to turn off your phones or put them on silent. We do not want the press conference to be disturbed. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark Agri Brantley.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning to members of the press who are here. And thank you, PS, as usual, for the introduction. Let me start today by extending some congratulations to the 7th Division youth who have made the Leeward Islands under-15 cricket team. As we know, a cricket team is 11 players on the field, and the Nevis has sent 7 to this Leeward Islands under-15. More than that, the captain is Carice Bolo Farrell. I think everybody knows Bolo. He's quite a famous youngster here on the island, well known. We also have Nicholas Hero, Aidan Williams, Demore Prentice, Deshawan James, Kamari France, and Ryan Marsham. And so we congratulate all of these brilliant youngsters. Let me also congratulate Mr. Edward King, Herbert of Zetlands, Gingerland. He recently celebrated his 90th birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Herbert, to you. And I know that your family continues to take very great care of you. Congratulations also to Mr. Lofton Sargent from Cotton Ground. He's residing in Maryland, USA, but we all know Mr. Sargent quite well. He comes from that very famous family in Cotton Ground, the Sargents, and he's been honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award at the annual Unsung Heroes Awards, which was held earlier this month in Baltimore. So wherever Nevisians go, they're making their contribution, and we say congratulations to my friend, Mr. Sargent. Congratulations also to my friend, Mr. Shervin Green. He's the head coach at Monroe University in New York, and he's been named as the Men and Women's Coach of the Year by the United States Track and Field Cross Country Coaches Association. This is his 5th time. His 5th time being named as Coach of the Year. So we congratulate Mr. Green. I know he's a big fan of the Charleston Primary School, and so we'll see what happens when we get to the inter-primary. Congrats also to Mr. Jamie Mills. He was selected to represent St. Kitts and Nevis at the 2026 Special Olympics North America Youth Congress, which occurred in Grand Rapids, Michigan over the period March 7th to 13th. If I can move from the word of congratulation to a word of condolence, I want to extend my deepest condolences to the family of Mr. Vincent Humpy Clark. And this comes from me, the government, the cabinet, but also from the Ministry of Tourism. Why? Mr. Clark was one of our longest serving taxi operators. And those who know him, they know him as Humpy. He was somebody who really served with distinction. He was laid to rest just late last week, and I want to go on record to extend my deep condolences to his family and to thank him posthumously for his excellent service to tourism on the island of Nevis. While I'm on that vein of sad events, I joined the Ministry of Education, the Nevis Sixth Form College, the CSS, the entire community of Nevis in extending heartfelt condolences on the passing of Letitia Gums. Young Letitia was a student of the Charleston Secondary School in the Nevis Sixth Form, and she was a valued member of the 2026 Nevis Debating Squad. And she passed away suddenly on Monday, March 16th, 2026. I'm told she was only 17 years old. She was bright, talented, and engaged, a young individual who made meaningful contributions both within and beyond the classroom. She was actively involved in a number of school and community activities. Most recently, she co-hosted the Bank of Nevis High School's Championships opening ceremony and served with distinction at the Leeward Islands debating competition, which she introduced the moderator for Debate 3. She was also a committed member of the Methodist Church, reflecting her strong values and sense of community. I would wish to join my cabinet colleagues, the whole NIA, the Ministry of Education, and the Charleston Secondary School and Sixth Form College in extending heartfelt condolences to her family, classmates, teachers, and all who knew and loved her. To her mother, Rose, a very good friend of mine, I extend my heartfelt condolences. During this time of loss, we stand in solidarity with her family and the school community, and we offer our full support. Letitia's presence, contributions, and potential will never be forgotten. Always sad, ladies and gentlemen, when we lose, particularly our young people who are so full of promise. And I extend my condolences to all of those who mourn. Let me advise that by way of proclamation issued on the 20th day of March 2026, Wednesday the 1st day of April 2026 will be a public half holiday on the island of Nevis on the occasion of the inter-primary sports, which will occur at the Mondo Track facility in the Long Point Prospect area. Let me also announce, ladies and gentlemen, that the Financial Services Regulatory Commission, Nevis branch, has appointed Mr. Andre Cadogan as our senior regulator and the man who will lead the regulatory efforts here in Nevis. We are very pleased to announce the appointment of Mr. Andre Cadogan, effective 1st March 2026. He succeeds Ms. Heidelin Sutton, who served the Nevis branch with distinction in the role of regulator. The Nevis branch extends its appreciation for her contribution to strengthening supervisory oversight and regulatory development during her tenure. Mr. Cadogan brings more than 30 years of professional experience in senior leadership, banking and financial services, risk management, compliance, and project management. Prior to his appointment, Mr. Cadogan served in roles such as the Vice President of Compliance, DERIV, CEO, St. Vincent Cooperative Bank Limited, and Country Head for the St. Kitts, Grenada, St. Vincent CIBC First Caribbean International Bank. He holds an MBA from the University of the West Indies and is a certified associate in project management with the Project Management Institute. He's also an accredited director with the Governance Training Institute of Canada. We welcome Mr. Cadogan, and we look forward to working with him to strengthen the regulatory framework for financial services here on the island of Nevis. In similar vein, I am pleased to announce the appointment of Ms. Rita Hawkins as Director of Nevis Finance. We are very pleased to announce the appointment of Ms. Hawkins effective March 16, 2026. Ms. Hawkins brings extensive experience in financial management, corporate governance, international structuring, and regulatory compliance across multiple jurisdictions, including St. Lucia, the British Virgin Islands, Nevis, and the wider Caribbean. In her role as director, Ms. Hawkins will support the continued development and promotion of Nevis as a leading international financial services jurisdiction. She is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants and holds a certificate in trust management with distinction. She has held senior management roles within the financial services industry in the British Virgin Islands, where she had responsibility for corporate governance, client accounting, fiduciary services, and liquidation oversight, providing leadership across operational and compliance functions, including AML, FATCA, and CRS frameworks. She has worked closely with international clients, including high net worth individuals and their advisors, in structuring and managing cross-border wealth management. We welcome Ms. Rita Hawkins as the Director of Nevis Finance. And members of the press, if you're wondering, the head of regulation, Mr. Cadogan, he will control the regulatory side of things. And the Nevis Island Administration, as part of its new marketing initiatives, has initiated an entity referred to as Nevis Finance, which will be the forward-facing entity for all matters of promotion and marketing of the jurisdiction. And so Ms. Hawkins has been asked to lead that. She's the first person that will lead that activity on the part on behalf of the Nevis financial services sector. And so it will be for her to guide us in terms of marketing, guide us in terms of regions of the world where we should market, and we hope obviously to continue the strong growth in the financial services sector that the island has been experiencing. Let me move quickly to the Ministry of Health, Gender Affairs and Social Empowerment. The Les Antilles Medical Assistance Team, LAMAT, concluded its 2-week mission in the Federation on March 6th. During that period, the team delivered a wide range of specialized medical services while also strengthening relationships and health systems that will continue to benefit Nevis and the Federation. Here on Nevis, the services provided include emergency medicine, dentistry, nutrition, education, and counseling, neonatal care, and new this year, mental health support. We also included audiology services, and that was especially impactful. We had 249 individuals who were assessed, including 217 receiving their first ever hearing evaluation. 34 were fitted with hearing aids. A newly introduced health fair also saw 133 individuals registered and served. The Ministry of Health would wish to thank every member of the LAMAT team, comprising personnel from the United States Southern Command, Taiwan Taipei General Hospital, and Here for a Purpose, for their professionalism, humility, adaptability, and compassion, which truly embody the spirit of service. One of their most meaningful contributions while here was their focus on training and capacity building for local healthcare staff. So we thank LAMAT, we thank the United States government, we thank the Taiwanese government, and we thank Here for a Purpose, who came to assist us with the audiology portion of this welcomed initiative. The Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority, very good news, in collaboration with the Taiwan ICDF, officially opened the recycling facility at the low-ground landfill on Tuesday, March 24th. This project, which began in July 2021, has yielded significant progress over the past year. The initiative has seen strong community involvement in recycling efforts, alongside the construction of the facility, the acquisition of essential equipment, the employment of personnel, and the shipment of compressed recyclable materials. Now, during that ceremony, we also received kind gifts from our friends at the Republic of China, Taiwan, including a baler, 32 plastic bins, 5 community bins, 400 bags, and 900 shirts. Now, we also received a truck. So you will soon see a truck driving around Nevis to pick up recyclable material. It will be a truck dedicated for recyclables. What is interesting about this all is that if you saw any of the photos that were posted by members of the press, you would have noticed that most people were dressed in a bright pink polo shirt. Those shirts, those pink shirts, were made from plastic. It is absolutely astonishing that what they did was that from the plastics that we collected in Nevis, that we baled, we shipped a container to Taiwan. They converted that plastic and were able to produce not only shirts, but shopping bags. And so we have 400 shopping bags and 900 shirts were donated as a result of that. It really shows the possibilities that exist when we recycle. So instead of just throwing it away, they've taken it and they've repurposed it. And so they've created these beautiful shirts. You should definitely check them out, and some beautiful shopping bags as well. So we thank Taiwan for showing us what is possible in what is being referred to as a circular economy. For the observance of International Women's Month, the Department of Gender Affairs, through its call for nominations, honored and recognized the following women for their outstanding contributions to society. Mrs. Jackie Hunkins was awarded for law, Charmaine Powell for finance, Noelisa Swaby for the circular economy, Valerie Hendrickson for agro-processing, Diane Hobson for arts and culture, Theme Award, Ocean Beacon Award, and the Minister's Award went to Miss Leander Cornelius. I want to congratulate all of these strong women for the contributions that they've made in their fields and to Nevis and the wider Federation. Camp Health, the Department of Community Development, in collaboration with the Health Promotion Unit, will host Camp Health, healthy eating and active lifestyle that is holistic. The duration will be for 2 weeks from April 7th to April 17th at the Jessup's Community Center from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. It is designed to promote healthy habits among primary school-age children through fun, interactive, and age-appropriate activities. There's a cost associated. It is $25 per week or $50 for the 2 weeks. Please, we are asking the public to allow your children to be a part of this camp. Let me move to the RISE program, and to advise that the RISE program would have conducted its first money management and budgeting session for Phase 5 participants. That session was facilitated by Ms. J.D. Keynes of the Nevis Credit Union Corporation. The session was open to LIFT clients as well, who benefited from the training. A total of 11 clients attended the session. The issue is that some of the individuals enrolled in the RISE program and some who were in the LIFT program were complaining that they were having difficulties managing their money. And so the idea was really to try to share with them tips on how they can better manage the resources that they have. So the session would have covered key areas including income and expenditure, managing disposable income, exploring employment options, savings, and the use of budgeting tools to analyze spending habits. Let me move now to the area of tourism. The Ministry of Tourism, in collaboration with the Department of Agriculture and Community Development, would recently have launched the Nevis Garden Competition at the Botanical Gardens on Friday the 19th of March. Registration is now open for both households and businesses. So if you're a gardener, you have a fantastic garden, please register. The competition celebrates our traditions, our connection to the land, and the natural beauty of Nevis. The main aims are to preserve and revive our cultural heritage, to promote environmental sustainability and beautification, and to support local food production. Participants can enter in 2 groups, households and businesses, and across 3 plant categories: ornamental plants, crops, and fruit trees. Judging is scheduled for the 2nd week in July. So we invite persons to register and be a part of that. Let me now move to the activities of the Nevis Tourism Authority. Many of you, members of the press and members of the public, no doubt would have been aware that just this weekend we had the 25th staging of the annual Nevis to St. Kitts cross-channel swim. I think it is safe to say that that event has now become a bucket list global event. And I don't use those words lightly. I believe I'm supported by the statistics. I'm advised that over 500 participants were at this event. When I say participants, swimmers. And importantly, they represented some 41 countries from around the world. We had swimmers from Australia. We had swimmers from Antarctica. We had swimmers from Argentina. We had swimmers from all across the globe. The largest number, I'm advised, came from the United States. Second largest number was from the United Kingdom. And then, of course, we had local swimmers as well, over 500. When we consider, ladies and gentlemen, not just the swimmers, but their support teams, their family members, we start to consider the economic impact of this swim on the Federation. And I say the Federation because our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts have embraced this swim as their own. And so the St. Kitts Tourism Authority has also been on board in pushing and promoting this swim. Many of the swimmers and their families and their support teams were actually accommodated on St. Kitts. Why? The hotels in Nevis were all full. And so St. Kitts would have benefited tremendously from this swim, which starts in Nevis but ends in St. Kitts each year. I really welcome this collaboration. It shows what we can do when we work together to create opportunities such as this. This swim has truly become, in its 25th year, an international event, which is sought after. I'm advised by the organizers that we can easily get to 1,000 swimmers in the near future based on the demand that they're seeing for this. In fact, they thought that we would have got to 700 this year, except, of course, for the geopolitical tensions that have broken out. And so some people would have canceled, some people naturally from that region of the world would have canceled. But certainly to have had swimmers in Nevis from Australia and from Antarctica speaks volumes to the appeal of this particular swim. We also celebrated the Governor General's Cup Caribbean Air Rally on Friday the 20th of March. Nevis proudly hosted this prestigious international aviation event. We welcomed over 10 planes with their pilots and travel partners. The event held a strong focus on youth development, with a cross-section of our students getting an opportunity to be exposed to aviation and STEM opportunities. Nevis was only one of 3 destinations on the stop list, and it really positions Nevis as a destination that connects tourism, education, and innovation. We want to congratulate the Four Seasons Resort Nevis on being named a finalist for most Instagrammable hotel in the world for 2026. This reinforces again Nevis's positioning as a visually compelling luxury destination with global appeal. The NTA would have participated in a high-level trade and media meetings in London, England, via attendances of the Travel Media IMM UK Caribbean in the countryside and other travel trade meetings and agents training. The goal was to position Nevis directly to agents actively selling the Caribbean. We strengthened relationships with top-tier outlets, including BBC Travel and major UK publications, critical in shaping Nevis's global narrative for 2026. The NTA also, in partnership with the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, attended a travel and adventure trade show in Florida. Attending this event allowed for direct engagement with both travel advisors and consumers, driving awareness and important conversations. Nevis was prominently featured across leading publications, including New York Trend, Afar Media, Travel Age West, True Tray, Travel Daily News International, and Deadline. The Nevis to St. Kitts cross-channel swim garnered international media attention, with several publications highlighting it as a premier Caribbean event. Notably, Southern Boating and Yachting featured the swim among the top spring 2026 events, noting its scenic open water crossing and appeal to global participants. Members of the press, I think you'd agree with me that the island of Nevis is definitely on the rise. Let me now turn my attention quickly to advise that the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Nevis Island Branch Youth Parliament will be having, or would have had, a mock sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly under the theme Unlocking Opportunities Together for a Prosperous Commonwealth. This will have been held in the Parliament of the Nevis Island Assembly on Monday the 23rd of March. And the debate focused on a resolution that addressed the issue of acceptance of third country deportees by individual CARICOM member states. Some may argue that we should have had this debate earlier, so it could have informed the decision-making on this particular issue. A total of 12 youth parliamentarians participated in the mock sitting. The following are the assigned positions. The president was Ms. Alyssa Jeffers, the clerk, Ms. Brianna Farrell, the sergeant-at-arms, Mr. Kalikan Gift. The government members, Mr. Chris Clark was the Premier and Minister of Agriculture and Housing. Mr. Mitchell Boren was the Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance and Tourism. Ms. Alasia Brown was the Minister of Education and Human Resources. Mr. Micah Maynard was the Minister of Gender Affairs, Youth and Social Development. And Mr. Kenny O'Challenger was the Minister of Communications. Opposition members, you had Ms. Chevron Daniel, Leader of the Opposition and Shadow Minister of Gender Affairs, Youth and Social Development. Ms. Angelina Kalidis, Shadow Minister of Finance and Tourism. Ms. Aisha Liebert, Shadow Minister of Education and Human Resources. And Ms. Shaquana Jones, Shadow Minister of Communications. The Nevis Youth Parliament invites interested persons aged 15 to 27 to seize the opportunity to join the Nevis Youth Parliament. You can find application forms at the Legislature's office, which is at the Johnson Jones Building, Government Road, just across from the Alexandra Hospital. So we thank those youths involved and we encourage others to get involved. Let me move to some information about our film industry. I am delighted to advise that the Nevis Film Commission hosted a successful evening of film and conversation at NEPAC with a special screening of the short film Pangirl, giving the attendees another opportunity to experience the production following its premiere last November. The event also featured an engaging panel discussion with industry professionals, including Juliet Jeffers, writer, producer, and director of Pangirl and Proud Nevision, Cindy Mitchell, actress, Deb Dixon, background actor, Winston Crook, local casting director, and Jamal Jean-Jacques, production professional. Panelists shared valuable insights into screenwriting, acting, casting, and film production, while also encouraging greater local participation in Nevis's growing film industry. Audience members were highly interactive, expressed strong appreciation for the program, and new names were added to the Film Commission's cast and crew database. Now let me pause, members of the press, to say this is all part and parcel of our ongoing efforts to build out this industry. We started it during COVID-19, and I'm pleased to announce that we have thus far had 14 feature films. 14 feature films done in Nevis. We have had 2 television series filmed in Nevis, and we have had 4 catalog photo shoots done in Nevis during that time. I think that that speaks well of what we're trying to do. More importantly, we have had a number of young Nevisians getting involved in makeup, costume design, set construction, and some are now getting involved in sound, lighting, and of course, the editing aspects of what we do. So I certainly think that we are making good strides, and we are looking forward to more films being done here this year. The Nevis Film Commission was recently highlighted in Tripcast 360, a niche Caribbean-focused podcast that explores travel, lifestyle, and entertainment through destination features, tourism insights, cultural stories, and conversations with travelers, creatives, and industry insiders. Our film commissioner, Pamela Martin, was recently featured in Black Meetings and Tourism as part of the publication's Women's History Month coverage. The feature is strategically significant for the Nevis Film Commission as it positions Nevis before target audience of travel, hospitality, and destination influence professionals. Nevis will be prominently featured as a filming location for Lifetime's upcoming romantic drama, Terry McMillan Presents Paradise with You, which is scheduled to premiere in fall 2026 as part of the network's Love of a Lifetime slate. Starring Tay Diggs, whom you may know from When Stella Got Her Groove Back, Heather Hennens, and Cynthia Bailey. Cynthia Bailey, I'm told, is either present or former member of the cast of Housewives of Atlanta. The film was shot on location across Nevis, showcases the island's secluded beaches, historic landmarks, lush landscapes, and distinctive Nevisian culture. The production represented an important opportunity to showcase Nevis to Lifetime's 63 million U.S. television households, as well as audiences in more than 200 territories worldwide. Beyond serving as a backdrop for high-profile romantic drama, the project further strengthens Nevis's reputation as a compelling destination for international film and television production. It also created meaningful opportunities for locals through speaking roles, background acting, and vendor engagement. And vendor engagement is a nice way of saying that Nevisians are now providing transportation, they're providing catering, and various services. In fact, I'm told that a local company has been formed by Nevisians to provide support services for films. So we're definitely growing this industry in a real way so that it can become a significant part of our diversification thrust on the island. The Nevis Film Commission received significant media exposure throughout March, generating strong visibility for both the destination and the growing film industry. We had 56 media placements in March, potential reach 432 million people. Selected publications: Yahoo, Entertainment, Travel and Tour World, US Weekly, Deadline Hollywood, New York Post, Page 6, The Hollywood Reporter. The Tay Diggs Lifetime announcement was also carried across multiple regional outlets, including the Barbados Gazette, the Grenada Chronicle, St. Vincent Tribune, Bahamas Spectator, Antiguan Tribune, Trinidad Tribune, Dominican Republic Post, St. Lucia Chronicle, Jamaican Enquirer, Haiti Gazette, Guyana Enquirer, and Dominica Gazette. That's a lot of media coverage, and we again welcome. And members of the press, I need to stop here for a moment just to make the point that none of this is by accident. it is all part and parcel of our plan to develop this industry, to gain maximum exposure for the island of Nevis, to diversify our economy away from its heavy dependence on tourism, a lesson that we learned the hard way during COVID. And we have continued on that path of diversification, which 4 years now, since COVID, we are starting to see the momentum building for these efforts that we have been making. We are in the hurricane season from June until November each year. But the approach that this government has taken is not to wait until the season, but to continue to prepare our people throughout the year. And in that vein, we had a business continuity planning workshop through the Nevis Disaster Management Department from March 17th to 18th. That workshop, which was conducted daily from 9 to 3 p.m., was designed to strengthen the preparedness and resilience of small businesses and government departments. A total of 14 participants attended that particular workshop. We also had a Carib Wave Tsunami exercise on 19th March, and that was done in collaboration with NEMA, the National Emergency Management Agency, and we had the first response agencies participating on that day. The primary objective was to validate and enhance end-to-end tsunami preparedness across the Caribbean and adjacent regions, test operational emergency communication systems, evaluate evacuation protocols, assess readiness within coastal areas and other at-risk communities, and test assembly point procedures, including accountability actions at designated assembly points. We also had the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and our Disaster Management Department would have successfully completed an emergency telecommunications project in collaboration with the Global Support and Development GSD. The project aimed to strengthen national disaster response systems by enhancing the reliability of emergency telecoms networks. Activities conducted on both islands included the procurement and installation of critical communication equipment, such as VHF reporters, mobile and handheld radios, satellite communication systems, along with associated training and system testing. We also had something which I thought was very important. Over the period 23rd to 25th March, the Nevis Disaster Management Department successfully completed its annual school home safety for persons with disabilities, training for childcare workers and school safety officers. The training was critically important in strengthening disaster preparedness, inclusion, and child protection on Nevis. When we say no one left behind, it's because we mean no one should be left behind. Let me move quickly to the public works, and good news for the people at Brown Pasture Morgan Estate, your road is almost finished. The utility companies are currently there, switching out their utilities, moving the poles, and we anticipate that that work will be finished very shortly. I've been in close contact with the private contractor on the job, and he assures me that that work is shortly to be completed. I will be very happy when that is done, because those residents have really complained for a very, very long time. The Public Works Department road team has also wrapped up the construction of a drain in Lower Rice's village. We're currently still in the area building a short retaining wall at the location. Public Works is also overseeing the construction of a retaining wall along the eastern and northern boundaries of the Jessup Community Center. That work is being done by a private contractor, and it prepares the way for some road works that also are long overdue in the Jessup's area. The Public Works road team is currently reconstructing a culvert in Newcastle, and what I'm advised is called the Picker-Didder Street. That is the road above the Newcastle police station. The works they involve reinforcing the existing size of the culvert and then replacing the top deck of the culvert. Public Works is also having their paving crew. Recently, for those who are in the Gingerland area, you would have seen that we milled and resurfaced a section of the Island Main Road from the top of Pond Hill to Meads Pasture and Claygut Roads. The work should have been completed. Regrettably, we had a mechanical failure with our paving machine. We have ordered the part, and so we hope to get back to finish the small section shortly. Public Works is also overseeing the construction of a concrete village road in Claygut and Central. That work has been ongoing for just over 3 weeks, and we hope to have it completed shortly. There's also some works that is being done at the MGR Park, and what we're doing there is, as you know, there's a gut that runs along the edge of that park, and what we have found is that where there are heavy rains, the water spills over and damages the park itself. So what we are now doing, workmen are in place there now, building a retaining wall, or maybe I should say a protective wall, to ensure that those waters do not spill over into the MGR Park and damage it as has happened in the past. And so we again look forward to that. Further evidence of how we are building as a government the infrastructure. You hear the different places that I mentioned: Rice's, Jessup's, Brown Pasture, Newcastle, right here at Pinnes, Pond Hill, Meads Pasture, Clegot. Put differently, all across Nevis. We're doing work, critical work, to improve the lives of our people and to improve safety and reliability of our infrastructure. Members of the press, some very good news on the water front, on water, the front of water, on the waterfront. An additional well has been completed in Hamilton area. The yield of that well is 200 imperial gallons per minute. This brings the total of new water discovered thus far to 972,000 gallons per day. And so we are making great progress. You recall that our ambition was to get an additional 1.5 million gallons a day. We're now up to 972,000 gallons a day. The next location we will drill at would be the Upper Church Ground area, just off the road to Banyan. The new water storage tank for the New River Farmers Co-op, with a capacity of 27,000 gallons, was completed on February 19th. It was commissioned just last week, bringing tremendous relief, of course, to our farmers. And then the Stony Hill water tank, with a capacity of 500,000 gallons, is presently on island. Preparations for the installation have already begun, and we expect that the erection of the tank will be completed in a few months. Will provide additional storage capacity for the south of the island of Nevis. Why do I mention this? Because water is life. And this government has invested and continues to invest in water security for the people of Nevis. There is no community in Nevis that is without water. Every community in Nevis has 24-hour supply, 7 days a week. And I think that that is instructive for those who want to build, for those who want to develop, for those who want to invest. The water security in Nevis. And again, members of the press, not by accident. This was a deliberate plan. It started by upgrading the distribution network across the island. I think all of us remember when the island was a construction zone. We're digging up the roads, placing the blue polyurethane pipes, modern technology. Then we invested significantly in new storage, and as I've just indicated, we have just purchased and had delivered another 500,000 gallon storage tank. Again, those of you, if you drive around, you go up in the hills, you'll see these beautiful storage, modern storage tanks that have been erected. And then the last bit of that, we are now finding new water. We have commissioned already a small desalination plant, and we are now doing drilling. And this morning I was able to report that that drilling thus far has yielded some 972,000 additional gallons of water per day. That, I think, by any estimate, is an incredible record on water and water management in the island of Nevis. Let me switch now to the Department of Youth. The Department of Youth is having their Discover Nevis Easter Camp 2026 under the theme Explore and Experience. The camp will run from April 7th to April 17th at the ETW Park and will cater to children between the ages of 5 to 14. Daily activities will take place from 9 to 3:30, providing a structured and stimulating environment for learning, creativity, and recreation. We take this opportunity to remind all parents and guardians to ensure that children are prepared and arrive on time for daily activities. I, of course, commend the Department of Youth for its continued commitment to youth development and for creating these meaningful programs for our youngsters. The Ministry of Education, together with the wider Nevision community, was honored to welcome some of the region's most talented young debaters for the staging of the 54th Annual Leeward Islands Debating Competition 2026, which was held in Nevis from March 11th to 15th. That competition was fierce, but it culminated in an exciting final between Team Antigua and Team Nevis, where Antigua emerged victorious with a total of 694 points. Evidence that in Nevis there's no home court advantage. The judges judged fairly, and the judges determined that Team Antigua was the winner of this year's Leeward Islands debating competition. We extend congratulations to the finalists, to Team Antigua, the champions this year, Team Nevis, the runners-up, but also to all of the other teams and for those who received individual awards. While Team Nevis placed a commendable second, they represented the island with distinction, confidence, and excellence. We are immensely proud of their performance and the professionalism they demonstrated throughout the competition. We extend heartfelt commendations to the Literary and Debating Society at the Nevis Sixth Form, whose leadership and commitment were instrumental in the successful execution of this event. Special congratulations are extended to the staff sponsors and most importantly to the students whose passion, discipline, and intellectual engagement brought the competition to life. We further express sincere gratitude to the wider Nevision community for its unwavering support. We are especially thankful for the financial contributions and all other forms of assistance that made this event possible. A word about the TDC Inter-School Championships. I think all of Nevis came alive for the TDC Inter-School Championships. At that championships, we have perennial champions and perennial favorites, the Charles E. Mills Secondary School on St. Kitts. They have been unstoppable. They have been unbeatable for many, many years. Well, guess what? The Charlestown Secondary School almost beat them. Apparently, it came down, I'm told, to the final race. And when the medal count was done, the Charles E. Mills won with just 2 more gold medals than the Charlestown Secondary School. In fact, in the overall medal count, if you were to include the bronze and the silvers, Charlestown Secondary School actually got 73 medals compared to the 69 medals for the Charles E. Mills Secondary School. But of course, only the gold medal count is used to determine the championship. And so Charles E. Mills got 2 gold medals more than the Charlestown Secondary School. Gingerland Secondary School finished with an impressive 4th place. So of the 10 schools participating across the Federation, the 2 schools in Nevis were in the top 4, 2nd and 4th. The reason why I want to mention that is obviously to congratulate the students, the athletes, the coaches, the schools, their support systems. But I also want to lay down a marker that this is the manifestation of good decisions, good policy prescriptions, and wise investment by this government. When we built the Mondo Track facility, there was, as attends everything in this country, a lot of noise, a lot of criticism, a lot of opposition. We ignored the noise and we built the track anyway. The reason is simple. That prior to that Mondo Track being built, our students in Nevis, our athletes in Nevis were forced to run on grass if we were having rain and dirt if we were not having any rain. Those same students were then being asked to go to the Kim Collins Stadium in St. Kitts and compete against the schools in St. Kitts who had proper facilities to train on. We decided that that had to change. And we invested in that Mondo facility, and that Mondo facility has now allowed our young athletes a training facility which is on par with anywhere else. And we are now seeing the benefits of that. I'm going to get to some more benefits shortly. But the fact that the Charlestown Secondary School was neck and neck with the perennial champions, Charles E. Mills, and that it came down to the final race, I'm told. The fact that the Charleston Secondary School total medal count was actually higher than the Charles E. Mills Secondary. The fact that the two schools in Nevis were in the top 4 in the Federation all speak volumes to good policies bearing fruit for the benefit of the people of Nevis. The pride that this performance brought. People were contacting me saying we should declare public holiday in Nevis. In fact, I said if there was only one good thing about us not winning, is because the pressure was not on for a public holiday. That is how excited our people were. Again, it shows good investment, good results, and the satisfaction and pride that our people get as a consequence. These things, members of the press, are not by accident. Because in addition to investing in the Mondo track, we have invested in coaching in our schools to ensure that each of our schools, from the primary level all the way up to the high schools, have coaches that are qualified, that are working under the leadership either of the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Sport, Department of Sport, but we have coaches there now. And the competition, which I suspect you will see at the Mini Olympics next week, Wednesday, is fierce as a result. We are creating world-class athletes here. Now, I should advise that in that same vein of our athletes, if you wanted further proof of the pudding that our athletes are stepping up and stepping out and being recognized, is that I'm advised that the Carifta Games, which are now upcoming, they will be in Grenada this year, that of a group of 25 athletes selected, 10 are from Nevis. It's the first time in the history of the Federation that we've had so many athletes from Nevis. In fact, 11 athletes were selected from Nevis, but regrettably, Kalia Jones, who was selected for the 400 meters, she's currently based in the US, and she's unable to attend. But we have Janiyah McNeil for the high jump, Malik Freeman, javelin and shot put, Killen Prentice for the 100 and 200 meters, Jalen Hendrickson for the 400 meters hurdle and relay, Kimani Newton, 800 meters and relay, Shandon Borton, 3,000 meters, Najib Kelly, 1,500 meters and relay, Dejon Pemberton, high jump, Kezia Phillip, shot put. I pause there. 11 students, 11 young people selected to go to Carifta from Nevis. Would that have been possible without the investments made? Without the necessary framework put in place? Not only that, look at the variety of sporting disciplines that they're competing in. I hear sometimes the argument being made that not enough is being done for field events. But here we are qualifying for high jump, javelin and shot put, hurdles, but that's not a field event, but shot put, high jump, javelin, all of those we have qualified to go to Carifta. And again, ladies and gentlemen, evidence that when good decisions are made, when investments are made, our people rise to the occasion. And so I congratulate all of these young athletes. The Department of Education wishes to advise that schools will officially close on April 1st for students and on April 2nd for teachers, marking the commencement of the 2-week Easter vacation. School reopens on Monday, April 20th, at which time all students and staff are expected to return refreshed and prepared to continue the academic year with focus and purpose. Now, I spent some time talking about athletics. Lest you feel that that is only the area, or that is the only area where Nevis is excelling, I am very pleased to announce that Jalden Myers from the great metropolis of Bath has been selected to represent St. Kitts and Nevis on the senior men's national football team for the FIFA series in Indonesia. Additionally, our own Dr. Duana Pemberton will travel with the team in the capacity of team doctor, ensuring the health and well-being of our athletes throughout the competition. We congratulate both Jalden, footballer par excellence from Bath, and Dr. Duana Pemberton, who will be traveling with the team to Indonesia. In fact, I should share with you that my dear friend and brother, former ambassador of Indonesia to St. Kitts and Nevis, sent me a screenshot saying that he's at home in Indonesia watching sports, and Indonesia was playing against St. Kitts and Nevis. It just tells you how far sports can take us. I mentioned the Leeward Islands under-15 cricket team, captained by Carice Bolo Farrell from Nevis, and again, to emphasize that the cricket team has 7 members on the field. The squad may have 14, but of those, 7 are from the island of Nevis. I want to congratulate all these youngsters. I also want to congratulate their coach, Stuart Williams, for his continued dedication to the development of the sport, and of course extend congratulations to our Department of Sports. We continue to invest, members of the press. I want to announce that the Nevis Athletic Stadium, the Mondo track, they will be closed with immediate effect. And the reason for that is that preparations are ongoing for the Mini Olympics that will happen next week, Wednesday. That is the date. I've already announced that next week, Wednesday, will be a half holiday to accommodate, and it will be under the patronage of former Ivor Walters athletes Kevin E. Richards and Andre Liebert. This highly anticipated event this Wednesday, forgive me. I apologize. This Wednesday, April 1st. So there'll be a half day this Wednesday, April 1st, to accommodate the staging of the Mini Olympics. The highly anticipated event will bring together all 10 primary schools across the island, each prepared and determined to compete for the prestigious title of Inter-Primary Schools Championship. Now, the admission, I believe the admission is a little low for this event of this caliber. Adults, $25. High school students, $20. Primary school students, $15. And if you want to park on the inside, where there's ample parking, $40. Tickets can be collected at the Department of Education or purchased at the gate. I'm sad to say that early bird tickets have sold out. The Ministry of Education calls on the entire community to come out in full support of our schools. Support your school, wear your colors, support our youth, and be part of an event that continues to unite and inspire the island. We anticipate a large turnout. It is one of the largest sporting events in the Federation. And so we urge our patrons to exercise care and responsibility to ensure a safe and enjoyable event for all. We want an event that is incident and accident free. And it's a child-friendly event, and we hope that the adults will conduct themselves accordingly. At a lot of these events, the problems are not the children. Problems come from the adults. So we invite them to conduct themselves responsibly. The Department and Ministry of Agriculture would have hosted the 30th edition of Agri Expo at the ETW Park on Thursday 26 and Friday 27. Agri Expo commenced with an impressive opening ceremony on Thursday, and for 2 days featured all things agriculture on the island of Nevis. The event continues to attract persons from the sub-region. This year we had official representation from Anguilla and St. Martin, and I'm told that our usual friends would have been here from Saba as well. Participation was at a record high this year. We had 147 registered vendors compared to a mere 87 last year, an increase of some 60 vendors, 147 registered vendors. And I spent some time there, and I could tell you it was a grand event. I want to go on record to thank Mr. Mario Liebert for being our patron. He had served for many years in agriculture, and certainly he was properly recognized as the patron for Agri Expo 30. I will pause there and take any questions that members of the press may have. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Elke Hewlett, Department of Information. The High Court building in Charlestown has been closed for some time due to issues with mold, if I'm not mistaken. Can you give an update on what's going on with that? Also, you recently met with representatives from a company with regard to geothermal drilling. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what progress has been made on that with that project. Considering, as you mentioned, Agri Expo, last year recall that we had a tent, a booth, an area for marijuana plants and what's not. And St. Kitts also had for their Agri Day, Open Day, I think it's called. However, just ahead of that this year, we'd have seen two basically high-profile arrests being made on Nevis and on St. Kitts for persons growing marijuana. Persons who would have, I'm told, participated in Agri Day, Agri Expo on Nevis. Can you, as a leader of the opposition, shed some light on the Federation's marijuana policies? And, because it's raised some questions about the federal laws pertaining to marijuana. And I'll end here for now. Thanks.
Ms. Hewlett, thank you very much for your questions. On the High Court building, we do not yet have a confirmed approach on that building. It's an historic building, as you know. The problems are quite serious based on what I've been advised by Public Works, and the problems seem to be on the roof of that building. The estimated costs for repairs are quite high, and we, as a small government, must look to see how we can manage that cost to put that building back. I want to be very clear that this does not reflect any lack of support for the operations of the court. In fact, through the Permanent Secretary in the Premier's Ministry, we have been providing as much support as we can to the administration of justice on the island of Nevis. I point out the obvious, that the administration of justice does not fall to the NIA as something over which the Nevis Island administration has responsibility. Notwithstanding, we have continued to invest, continue to provide support of the resident judge here, and we are currently have retrofitted the community center at Bath to accommodate the sitting of the court. The arrangements are not ideal, and we need to get back with some alacrity to the High Court building, Theodore Hobson, KC High Court building in Charlestown. But we are currently faced with financial constraints. And so we will have to look carefully to see when we might be able to initiate that project, which, whilst the reason for the closure is, as you say, mold, the question is, where was the mold coming from? And several efforts were made to remedy that situation through treatment, through cleaning, and it simply kept reoccurring until we were able to find out that there were some structural issues with the roof that need to be addressed. And so, Ms. Hewlett, we will get to it as we can, but I want to give the public every confidence that we are definitely agitated by this and need to get to it, and need to find the resources to get to it, and we will try to do that so that the court could be properly back where it should be, in the heart of Charlestown. Geothermal drilling, yes. I think we had an excellent week where we had the representatives from the company Icelandic Drilling. They were on island, and they came, as I'm advised, to meet with Nevlec as the point entity on this project to finalize details of the drilling contract and the drilling arrangement. In my brief engagement with the members from Icelandic Drilling, they set out a very aggressive timeline that they could mobilize and, in fact, hope to start drilling by August. This is their timeline. I'm optimistic that we can make it, bearing in mind that we're now in April. But they feel that the drill rig, which they say is en route to Iceland for repairs and retrofitting, can then sail to Nevis to commence the drilling operations here, which will be a significant forward step in terms of our geothermal ambitions. As global conflict continues, impact in the Gulf region, impact in the Strait of Hormuz, as Russia, Venezuela, Iran, and the Gulf countries, all of which are significant players in the global oil industry, continue to have an assortment of difficulties, it says to me that our people need to prepare ourselves for what looks like a very long road of increased costs for oil, increased costs for energy, increased costs for electricity, and when electricity prices go up, we know everything else goes up. I sat on the weekend, I made my usual rally around the island, spent a little time in Brick Hill with the guys there, at Danville shop. I then left there and I was up there at the juncture of Zion and Harris's with the boys there. I want to say hello to them. And in a conversation there with a young fisherman, a fellow they call Yellow, he said to me that fishermen will have no choice. They have to now look at increasing the cost of fish because fuel is going up. The busmen will have no choice. They will have to look at increasing the cost of bus fare because fuel is going up. And I want our people sometimes, Ms. Hewlett, to consider that we look at these things, we see them on CNN and the BBC, and we treat them as if there's some distant conflict. That they have nothing to do with us. That's Iran. That's Ukraine. But in truth, the impact is felt right here on the island of Nevis. That, I think, is an important point that we bear in mind. And that's why I keep saying to our people, we must remain engaged. We must watch the news. We must pay attention. Because sometimes some may come and try to fool you. I'm not one of those. Some may come and try to tell you that they can somehow shield and insulate you from these shocks. I'm not one of those. Because the reality is that once the price of oil goes up, everything goes up with it. The world is fueled by energy. And I say that at this point because it simply reinforces why we must proceed with our geothermal potential in as aggressive a manner as we can. So that is where we are. I'm happy to provide that update. Now, Ms. Hewlett, let me drink a little water for your next question. And this water is, just so you know, produced in Nevis, one of the many things we're producing on the island. Ms. Hewlett, I have been very concerned about what I am seeing unfolding in the Federation of our people being criminalized for marijuana and the police continuing in their efforts to arrest, charge, and prosecute people for marijuana. Now, why do I say that I'm concerned? I'm concerned because I observe a disconnect between what the governments have been saying, the broad and bold pronouncements in the parliament, the broad and bold pronouncements in speeches made by the Prime Minister, made by the Premier, made by others. We have mainstreamed this language of a cannabis industry. We have talked about it providing a much needed diversification to our current economy. I myself, Ms. Hewlett, have gone on record to say that cannabis is one string to our bow that we can use to diversify our economy away from our heavy dependence in Nevis on tourism and in St. Kitts on citizenship by investment. I was in Grenada recently delivering a speech there at the inaugural Congress of a new party formed there. And Grenada is grappling with the same issues. That whilst they entered the citizenship by investment program and industry much later than St. Kitts and Nevis, they too had become very dependent on it. I think the statistics show that somewhere in the region of 25 to 30% of their budget was coming from CBI. In St. Kitts and Nevis, that number was upwards of 60%. In fact, I believe it was 2 years ago that citizenship by investment accounted for 55% of the revenue. It is no secret and should be no secret to any of us that that has stopped. There has been a significant fall off in CBI inflows. And there have been people like me who from this rostrum from the Nevis Island Assembly that I'm privileged to be a member of, from the National Parliament that I'm privileged to be a member of, agitating and advocating that we must move with speed to diversify our economy. In Nevis, we are doing it. That is why I can report on the film industry. We can talk about the online gaming industry that we've just started in Nevis. We are currently building at Prospect a broiler facility to ensure that we can move the island to more self-sufficiency in chicken. We're investing in our young farmers and shade houses. Nevis has been trying its very best to diversify, come up with new ideas and creative ideas. And we have said that cannabis is one such industry. The federal government, for its part, has been talking about cannabis and the cannabis industry since it almost seems now when Noah built the ark. We've been talking about it for a very long time. When the Team Unity government was there, a government that I was a part of, we talked about it. Not much happened. Since this new government led by Dr. Terence Drew is there, talking about it. They said they have set up the necessary commission. They've appointed a CEO. So how on earth can you justify saying on the one hand that you're developing an industry, on the one hand that you're putting the infrastructure in place, the framework in place, you have a cannabis commission, you have a CEO, you're moving in that direction, but the police are still raiding and locking up, prosecuting and charging these individuals. I saw one young man reach out, he said he was charged $18,000. That was the fine in the court. Another one was fined $10,000. And so I don't hold any brief for any particular individual who was arrested. I am one who feels very strongly that the law is the law, and the law must be respected. And I am not here to bash the police. The police are doing their job. The question that I'm asking publicly is, why is there this hypocrisy, this duality in relation to cannabis? The country needs to make up its mind. We either want a cannabis industry and therefore going to encourage these youngsters to get involved, or we don't want it. But we cannot be saying to our people that we want to develop this industry. We are putting all of this in place. And when our people respond to that, by, in one case that I'm aware of, this young man told me he went to TikTok and YouTube to educate himself, to find out how it is this thing goes, to find out about strains and potency, CBD and THC, I think it's called. He's educating himself. Why? He wants to get himself ready for this industry. And the other day, that young man was raided by the police. Had his picture in the paper. Criminal. Criminalized. Hauled before the courts. Question is, how? We're trying to hold fire and water in the same hand. And I'm calling on the federal government because they're the ones who are setting this policy. The Prime Minister is the Minister of National Security and therefore the one charged with control over the police. And Samuel Duggins, the Honorable Samuel Duggins, is the Minister charged with Agriculture and, as I understand it, the one charged with developing the cannabis industry. The Honorable Samuel Duggins sits in the same cabinet as the Honorable Prime Minister. So how can he be talking about the development of a cannabis industry while the head of cabinet, as Minister of National Security, has the police out there picking up people, arresting people, charging people for the same cannabis? It does not make any sense. And our people are confused. Our people feel harassed. And I will go further. And not that I'm trying to be controversial, but the evidence is clear that the levels of enforcement on the island of Nevis for cannabis are far higher than those on St. Kitts. Every time I pick up the list of charges, Nevis I see an old Rasta man from, I believe he's from the Zion area. Peaceful people. People who have not got themselves involved in any type of violent crime or violent activity. I see his face in the paper, charged with cannabis. Number of raids in Nevis. Number of arrests made in Nevis. But in the main, the cannabis farmers in St. Kitts are not being similarly raided or arrested. It has led to a lot of conversation out there. Is there a biased approach to enforcement in relation to this cannabis issue? I can tell you that based on some statistics recently shared with me, that the police now have tickets that they can issue for those who continue to break the law by trying to smoke cannabis in public. And I agree with the police 100%. You want to smoke, smoke home by you. No need for you to be in public around other people who do not smoke. Deciding to smoke, you don't know if people have asthma, you don't know what the situation is. And so some youngsters are out there and abusing it. And I agree with the police to crack down on those youngsters who are smoking in public. But when I recently saw some numbers, that since this ticketing issue has come into place, 10 tickets have been issued in Nevis. Only one has been issued in St. Kitts. But I challenge any of you, in fact, we could leave here now and take the boat from the ferry terminal in St. Kitts and just walk up 4th Street. Every corner, you're smelling marijuana. So how come no tickets are being issued in St. Kitts? I don't say these things because they give me any joy. I say these things because it means that our people, because ultimately, members of the press, I am here because people put me here. And they put me here not to look out for myself, but to look out for them. And if people are calling me and saying, Mr. Brantley, this is not fair. Why are we being harassed? Why are we being singled out? Because when we look at the record, it does appear that there is a dual system at work. And I challenge members of the press, check for the last year. Check how many people in Nevis have been charged for ganja and how many people have been charged in St. Kitts. There's a vast disparity in the numbers. Check at the statements that we have been making publicly as public officials, encouraging this industry, and then check now with the police doing their job and going out and raiding and arresting individuals. The two things don't make sense when you put them together. And if it is the federal government is not serious about the cannabis industry, then let them come and say so. But you cannot be telling our youngsters, get involved. We want you involved. We want to build an industry. Let me tell you, members of the press, I'm taking a little time on this because I'm passionate about it. Do you know that recently there was a consultant who came? And he was offering, in my view, in fact, he appeared on my show, On the Mark. He was offering some very good insight because one of the things he pointed out, a lot of young people, a lot of people generally who use cannabis have no idea of the potency because there's no testing. And so he said that's important. But you know, I later found out that some farmers were reluctant to come forward because the consultant wanted to go and see the farms and see where they're growing cannabis so he could provide advice. They said, no, I don't want to come forward. So when I now show people where my farm is, how do I know that the police not going to come tomorrow to uproot my plants and raid me? The two halves of the system are working against each other. So we are not getting the industry and the momentum with the industry as we would like because people are afraid. This is an industry that has existed in the shadows. We now want it to come into the light. But how do you get it into the light when the policymakers are telling our people one thing and the police are saying we are enforcing the law, and that is a different thing? It makes no sense. At the end of the day, it's one government. And I am getting pressure in Nevis because people in Nevis are telling me, oh, you're the premier. These raids are being done because you're sending police to raid people. I am saying that that is not the case. My position has been very clear. if we are going to develop this industry, which I am in favor of, let us develop the industry. In fact, I have written to the Honorable Prime Minister as Minister of National Security, and I've said, Prime Minister, grant an amnesty period, 12 to 18 months, where those involved in this industry are allowed the time and the grace to come forward, knowing that they will not be prosecuted. Allow an opportunity, a transition period, if you will. I've not yet had a response. The Honorable Prime Minister, I know, has had some overseas engagements. But it is an important initiative if we are to give people some confidence. Otherwise, this that we want to bring into the light, regulate it, tax it, treat it as a legitimate industry, will recede into the darkness again. I make one final point on it, Ms. Hewlett. It has to do with the fact that we have been blessed by the work of our security forces, by the policy prescriptions of the government, by the grace of God, that violent crime is down demonstrably in St. Kitts and Nevis. The days when every other day you woke up, there was some report of violence, those days, we pray, are behind us for good. But I'm going to say it here today because I believe it to be true, that a lot of those youngsters who were involving themselves in violent crime are now looking to the cannabis industry as a way to support themselves and their family. When you choke that off, when you prevent them from growing a plant, when you say to them that if you go on TikTok and YouTube to learn how to grow, I'm going to criminalize you, I'm going to penalize you, I'm going to be imprisoning you, I'm going to put your picture all over the media as a criminal. And these youngsters who are trying to do that, because I'll tell you, I have never seen a plant kill a man yet. Planting, agriculture, a natural tree, it doesn't rob anybody, doesn't kill anybody, doesn't create any violence. And my simple point is that when you start to choke off those avenues for these youngsters, what message are we sending to them? Go back to what they used to do? Let's face it, members of the press and members of the public. If there's somebody growing some marijuana in pots in the back of their yard, how does that affect you and your quality of life in any way? The short answer is it does not. It has no effect on you. In fact, if a man is rearing pigs next to you, that will have more of an effect because you will smell it. A man growing some marijuana in pots has zero effect on his neighbors, zero effect on any of us. What we need to do is simply to be serious about this and to put in place the necessary regulations to say, listen, we keep children away from it, we educate our people about it. And I'm not going to get into the moral question. But many of us who are going around bashing marijuana drink alcohol. And that's perfectly legal. So we just need, I think, to get to a point. And so I am taking this time because I thought it important to express my concern, Ms. Hewlett, that we are sending mixed messages and our people are confused. I recommend again, publicly, that we grant a period of amnesty. We wipe out all of these prosecutions that are happening. We put a stay on that, and we allow our people an opportunity to come forward with some confidence to say they want to be an entrepreneur and they want to be involved in this industry. I am not condoning anybody breaking the law, but I feel that we must take responsibility as policymakers when we send mixed signals. We send messages that are unclear. And on the one hand, the government is saying yes to marijuana. We want an industry. And on the other hand, the police are coming and locking up people. Well, the police is an arm of the government. So, something is wrong somewhere. And I think that that needs to be fixed because a lot of ordinary citizens in this country are feeling the brunt, being punished, having their plants uprooted, plants destroyed, being charged, have their face all over the media, being prosecuted. And in 2 cases that I'm aware of, one said he was charged $18,000 and the other one $10,000. That's a significant sum for a young person who's just doing nothing but trying to make a living. So I believe that this has to be looked at and looked at seriously. And I'm hopeful that the Prime Minister is going to take this on board as a serious initiative. We cannot continue down this road. Too many people are suffering as a result of this type of approach that is being taken on this very important matter. Thank you.
Okay, Hewlett, just a follow-up on that. Do you know if the government, the federal government, is issuing any license for marijuana cultivation? And is it that, what I've heard is that the license, the figure is kind of prohibitive to locals. So is it that they're pricing the locals out of the possibility of participating in a marijuana industry in any meaningful way?
I don't have access to the pricing, but that is not my understanding. I'm told that the pricing for locals is actually quite low, and that it was designed that way to allow local people. You cannot have Samuel telling people go ganja, and then the PM telling the police go lock them up. It doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. They must get on the same page. They must understand what they're doing. And as I said, send a clear signal. Everybody stand up together and say, this is what we're doing in the country. And Nevis people are suffering. And when Nevis people suffer, I suffer. A lot of these youngsters who are being prosecuted are from Nevis. And I am concerned about it, Ms. Hewlett, very concerned. So this thing has to be solved, and it has to be solved quickly. Any other questions for me?
Shamika Bajin, Von Radio, and good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning.
And good morning to my media colleagues. Okay, just a follow-up question. How many marijuana plants are allotted per household? Mr. Premier, can we get an update on the proposed Destiny project? You mentioned previously that after extensive shareholder engagements and feedback, the NIA has given its consent to the project, and an approved document was sent to the Prime Minister in December. I think it was December 23rd to be exact. So can we get an update? Has there been any advancement towards the decision? Some time ago, the discussion was heavily on speeding and the introduction of the issuance of speed tickets. How is this going, as we are still seeing a lot of accidents week after week after week? How efficient and proactive is this? What feedback can you provide from this year's Agri expo? I know that we had the 2-day event on Thursday and Friday of last week. How do you feel about the event? Also, you have repeatedly said that food security is national security. What concrete NIA investments do we have in agriculture and agro-processing that are budgeted for this year? There were talks about mold being found on the first floor of the Alexandria Hospital, I think sometime last year, where I think now the area is sealed off, or we had learned last year that it was sealed off. Has that problem been rectified? I think Ms. Hewlett asked for an update on the High Court in Charlestown. My question is, can we also get an update on the Charlestown Police Station? Is the NIA planning to put any measures in place to help cushion the impact from the Middle East war for residents here? The subsidy on electricity for residential places is ongoing here on Nevis. But with the current war, it may be needed now more than ever. Will this continue indefinitely or in the near future come to an end? And can you provide an update on the desalination plant? Thank you.
Thank you. You've asked quite a few questions, so let me see how best I could try and answer them. You asked how many marijuana plants are allotted per household. I think the understanding that I had, you were allowed 5 plants. I must confess that I don't even know what the current position is, because the various pronouncements are all over the place. But that was where I knew. 5 trees, as they say. The Destiny Project, I regret to inform that we still have not had any movement at the federal government level. About a week ago, we got a letter from the Cabinet Secretary to say that the project had been referred to some committee that they had put in place in St. Kitts. That is the extent of what we know. We have not yet had from the federal government an answer, whether positive or negative. And it appears as if this committee now would have to deliberate. I don't know about this committee. I was certainly not, the committee was not discussed with me in terms of any consultation on it. I'm not aware of any Nevis involvement in that committee, save and except, I believe, the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society and the Nevis Hotel Association, I gather, were asked to submit members to that committee. But beyond that, truly, we are in a waiting pattern. I'm not sure why. The federal government clearly is only concerned with any constitutional aspects of this development. There is nothing else that the federal government has to contend with. So I'm not quite sure what the committee is going to advise on, or why this entire project has to go to a St. Kitts committee. The project is not a St. Kitts project. But that is the option that the federal government in their wisdom has chosen, and we in Nevis continue to wait. I can tell you that the developers are growing very frustrated because they are anxious to proceed. They want to proceed. They have real estate options that they want to close on and pay people their money. They want to start the necessary work. I can tell you that in my engagement with our young people, we have people who have heavy equipment, who are anxious to get going. They know that there's going to be years and years of work available. I have people calling even from St. Kitts, trying to position themselves to see how they could get in on a project of this magnitude. So we continue to wait. While we continue to wait on the Destiny Project to be approved and to start going, we realize that there is not a lot else happening. There's not a lot else happening. The Ritz-Carlton project that was proposed for St. Kitts, we see that now mired in confusion, it appears, with some issues about the land ownership and access to the beach bars, I think, that were there. So we really need some of these projects now to start to move. The government alone is incapable of moving the economy on its own. With CBI again on its knees, we now need to start to do things differently. And we don't have the benefit of time. We have to get things done, and done quickly. Right now, the Middle East, places like the United Arab Emirates, which were perceived as safe areas, they're being bombed. People are trying to get out. People are looking for options. People want alternatives. Why is St. Kitts Nevis not putting up its hand and saying, whether it's Ritz-Carlton, whether it's Kittitian Hill, whether it's Four Seasons, whether it's Destiny, here are alternatives for wealthy people who have the disposable income. These are the very people who have built the UAE. And all of us rush, and the dream for all of us is to go to Dubai, to see Dubai. But when we talk about creating the same opportunities in our country, people go around and they criticize it and they say all manner of evil against it. I have no illusions, Ms. Budgeon, about where this world is going. And it's because I have no illusions about where this world is going that I am motivated, more than ever, to ensure that we create opportunities here at home for our people. So that Destiny Project, we are still in a holding pattern on it. I have not yet heard back from the federal government officially on that. But I should say that we continue to have discussions, and I have been in touch with the Attorney General up to recently, and so we continue to speak about the various issues and the various concerns. The introduction of speeding tickets and the speed meters, I believe the PS is here. I have asked that that matter be dealt with because I would like to see something introduced in Nevis. We're not quite there yet, but I think that we are consulting with the police, traffic, to see how we can develop the same as a improve the road infrastructure, and as the number of cars grow. The number of cars grows on the island. We are seeing more and more speeding. And as a result of that, we definitely need to have these types of technology deployed on the island. Agri expo feedback, as we had heard, we jumped to 147 exhibitors from 87. So The attention is definitely there. The feedback that I have is overwhelmingly positive. The people that I've spoken to all seem to have had a wonderful time. It coincided with the same sort of period of the swim. And in fact, I was out with some of the journalists who had come for the swim, and whilst the tourism authorities had them going to Four Seasons for dinner and the like, they wanted to go to the Agri fair. They were saying they preferred to go there. They heard so much about it, they want to see it. The fact that we were able to attract attention from neighboring islands, I think is all significant in terms of where we're going here. And it tells you how Nevis is looked at by the region in terms of agriculture. So I think we're making good strides. You asked us, have we budgeted anything for the year to deal with agriculture? Well, we continue to support our farmers, obviously. We continue to provide heavily discounted feed for our animal and livestock farmers. We continue to provide support to our shade house farmers who are growing greens. Many of the greens that you eat now in salads in Nevis are being grown right here. But we also continue to invest in the broiler production facility that we've talked about. It is well and truly underway, being constructed. And of course, the intention there is to use that as the fulcrum for a broiler industry so that we can control the quality of the chicken that we consume and we can control the price of the chicken that is sold here. We're getting a lot of cheap, frankly, poor quality chicken that is coming in from around the world. And it is my opinion, and I emphasize opinion, that it is leading to greater sickness in our people, greater incidences of non-communicable diseases, obesity, diabetes, hypertension. All of those are linked to lifestyle. And I made a joke in my speech in Grenada, but it is true that I went the other day to buy a chicken leg, and the chicken leg was nearly the size of my leg. Some people look at it and they say, well, they're getting a lot of relish. But in my opinion, if a chicken leg is too big, something is wrong with it. Unless it's a bionic chicken, something is wrong with it. How they get that chicken leg so big is whatever they're pumping into that chicken. And if you go and eat that chicken leg, well, whatever they pump into it, those hormones, those chemicals are now in your system. They say we are what we eat. And so we have to be very careful in terms of what we're eating. So what the broiler industry does, it creates, again, diversification to our economy. It helps us feed ourselves. It insulates us, because I talked about the shocks recently about what these wars around the world are doing for pricing. But one of the things that I just saw recently is the long-term effect on the price of food. With fertilizers not being allowed through to the Strait of Hormuz, it means that they're saying planters are going to be planting less. This is now the planting season in many countries. Less wheat, less corn. All of these things have a cumulative effect on you and I. So what is the answer? We're going to just lie down and say, well, Trump bomb Iran, Israel bomb Iran, so poor me, poor me, poor me. No. Go plant a little food in your backyard. Put something. And I know the minute I say it, people are going to start to talk about monkeys. Right? But you know we have a saying, monkey no, well him to jump on. Because up by me, the monkey takes some, but they leave some too. Right? So my simple point is, plant something. Yes, we have marauding animals, and that's a problem. But if you could even fence off a little area, plant something. Our people used to be far more self-sufficient. We need to get back to that. And I am trying to encourage, I put up my little videos of me picking a little banana, doing whatever it is, plant something. And my little plot is only the size of this corner. But from that I get banana, I get okra, I get sorrel, I got what else I got? Seasoning peppers. The reality is that we need to start to do some things to help ourselves. I heard it said recently, and I believe it to be true, that there's nobody coming to save us. And we must save ourselves. And as a leader of this island and in a very difficult period for this world, I can only encourage our people to do the things that we know that we can do to help ourselves. Mold at the Alexandra Hospital, I confess that I have not had any reports of that problem, whether reoccurring or continuing, Ms. Budgeon. So I assume the problem has been resolved. The minister has not raised any issue with that particular problem. So I'll have to check on that one for you. That has not been something that has been raised at all. The High Court in Charlestown, you asked about the Charlestown Police Station. Again, it's a federal project. It's being done through the Ministry of National Security. The last time I checked, there was some little issues with the contractor and the government, but I'm told that those issues were to be resolved. So I am not sure, Ms. Budgeon, what the holdup now is on that issue of the Charleston Police Station. The last time I reported on it, I said based on what I was advised, they only had some cosmetic work to do. But it's still there, it's still sitting there. In the meantime, rents are being paid elsewhere. The police and the magistrates court are elsewhere. So I'm really hopeful that we can just get this done and get it over the line. Then you say, what measures to cushion the difficulties of the Middle East war? And herein lies the reality of small island governments, Ms. Budgeon. We really have no fiscal space to do very much. We have no fiscal space to do very much. And that is why I get so frustrated at what appear to be illogical decisions that are taken elsewhere in the world that then impact us. So here you're asking the Premier of Nevis, what are you going to do to cushion the impact of the Middle East war? Well, I didn't start any war, you know. I'm a peaceful man. Nevis didn't start any war. The people of Nevis are peaceful people. But here the question is being asked of me in Nevis, what are you going to do to cushion the impact? That question should be asked of those who are warmongering. What are you going to do to cushion the impact on the world? But of course, those questions are being asked of them. So we have been looking at it. I think we're adopting a sort of wait-and-see approach to see how much, because there's no doubt in my mind the cost of living will rise. But by how much? We have to look at that. And that takes me to the issue of subsidies on electricity that you spoke about. And we will have to have close collaboration with NEVLEC to determine where we go with those. As you know, we removed the fuel surcharge on households and we capped it on businesses. But with this happening now, and with the expected increase in the cost of fuel, we certainly will have to look at it again. I'm not here to make an announcement today, but I'm simply saying that NEVLEC and us, the NIA, will have to have a look, because the NIA does not have the financial capacity to simply subsidize, to simply say to our people, listen, all of the impact we're going to assume as government. If we were to do that, it would lead to substantially greater debt, and it would also mean that certain of the critical services that government provides, we would have to somehow put in abeyance. We clearly have to pay our civil servants. We have to keep healthcare functioning. We have to keep education functioning. So it's really not possible, Ms. Budgeon, for us at this stage to be talking about any large-scale subsidy or relief for our people from this war that others have started in Iran. So it's a matter we must look at, but we are not yet at the point where I can give you a definitive answer as to how. I'm merely saying to you that as we consider this, we must consider the lack of resources available to small governments. It's not just Nevis. I imagine all the small governments in the region are going to be having the same dilemma. How do you cushion your people from these decisions that are made elsewhere but impact you? Any other questions for me?
Morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning.
Earlier in the month, there was an article in the Antigua Observer about the geothermal, with Antigua looking to partner with the federal government or the Nevis Island Administration in terms of geothermal. Can you give us an update on that, please? And were you privy to the negotiations? Where would the fishermen of Newcastle, go as the airport expansion project continues? Earlier this month, you mentioned that the Destiny project is in the 11th hour. Can you give us a date as to when most of these contracts would be expired? I have been in court for the past couple of weeks. there is a few lawsuits against the NIA. Can you tell the nation exactly what is the main reason for that? And what is the government doing to limit the amount of lawsuits coming against them? The name of the KC that the government has hired and at what cost?
Thank you very much, Mr. George. Antigua Department Geothermal, I saw something that was posted somewhere. I'm not aware of any conversations with Antigua in relation to geothermal, save and except that I did receive a call from the head of the Port Authority in Antigua, who indicated that they wanted to have a discussion about the possibility of Nevis providing power to Antigua for their new port facility there. Those discussions started not with me, but with other parties. I believe that the World Bank is involved in those discussions. And at some point, I imagine that we'll engage. I will tell you, however, Mr. George, that my focus right now is how do I get geothermal power into the homes for the people of Nevis and the people of St. Kitts. That's my concern. How do we get geothermal? So what I'm calling the first phase is my priority. A lot of the other phases about export and all that, important, but not, for me, the first phase. Right? My objective is how do I get you, Mr. George, cheaper, cleaner energy into your house? How do I get, for the people of Nevis, cleaner, cheaper energy? How do I get for the people of Keon and Sandy Point, cleaner, cheaper energy? That is my primary objective at this point. You say the fishermen of Newcastle, where they'll be relocated, meetings have already occurred with the fishermen, and the relocation will be somewhere in the Herbert's Beach area. I think some work has already started in that area to prepare the area for the fishermen. So I'm told the meetings went very well. The meetings were led by our Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, and his team. And so the fishermen are going to ultimately be relocated, not too far away, but at the Herbert's Beach area. So that is already in train. Date for the Destiny project, you asked, when do these contracts expire? I really don't know. I'm not involved in the Destiny project in terms of knowing when the individual contracts with landowners would expire. But what they did indicate is that those contracts are coming up in terms of the expiry date. So I'm not sure what's going to happen when that happens, because clearly you can't expect that they're going to finalize. They pay deposits on all these lands, finalize the purchase without them knowing whether or not their project is going to be approved by the federal cabinet. So we'll have to wait and see, as we are all waiting to see what happens. You say you've been in court for the past few weeks, lawsuits against the NIA. What is the government doing to limit cases? The short answer is there's nothing the government can do to limit cases. Anybody who feels they have a grievance can bring a lawsuit. That is the system that we have. I'm only aware of one lawsuit against the NIA that involves me. No, forgive me, I'm aware of two that involve my ministries. I can't comment because, of course, there are active matters before the High Court, but I don't think either has any merit. Let me just say that. I'm not getting into the details, but there's a lot of chatter and a lot of talk, but at the end of the day, it's a court of law. And a court of law must apply the law, and it must apply the facts, and we will see how that goes. But I don't know that there's anything the government can do to prevent people from suing the government. Anybody who has a grievance has a right to take action if they're so minded. We have employed for one of the matters Tanania Small Davis, who's a King's Counsel from Jamaica, renowned legal luminary, has sat on the court as well as a judge, and has appeared in matters in the BVI, in Anguilla, in Antigua, and now here in Nevis. You said what cost? The short answer is I'm not privy to that. That would have been a matter between the King's Counsel and our legal department, and I can't therefore answer that particular question. But I can confirm that we've hired her to deal with one specific matter. Any other questions for me?
Good morning, Premier. Andre Huey, SK Newsline, TVC Channel 40. Back to the Destiny question. I would have asked the Prime Minister at his last round table on the issues you raised, the concerns you raised about the delays and the potential delays to the project in the approval of the Destiny project. What he indicated is that checks and balances have to be put in place, and they want to make sure that everything is essentially airtight before approving the project. Because he said that there could be implications where the federal government is responsible. He did make a delineation between the Nevis project, the fact that it's Nevis, they have control, the government doesn't have much say in that, but any matter pertaining to the federal responsibility, he has to make sure that that is dealt with. How do you respond to this? Are there, in your view, federal concerns that the federal government has to take into consideration before looking to sign off on the project? Also considering that the government is looking at amendments to the legislation, which he said should be brought before Parliament sometime soon. And how do you think this would impact the project in any way? Speaking of lawsuits, and this is a separate question, a few months ago you would have raised an issue regarding land that was acquired by the NIA previously, that is owned by the owners of the Rams Food Group, or Mr. Kishu, I think it was. I don't recall the name of the property right now, but that was accruing interests as we, at the time, and you indicated that the NIA was busy trying to negotiate to see how best to settle that matter. Where are we with that? Is the matter still unresolved, and is interest still accruing on that property?
Mr. Huey, thank you very much. The Prime Minister is absolutely correct that this particular project has certain federal aspects to it that he is responsible for. Primary among them is, of course, to ensure that any project and what is proposed accords with the Constitution. That's why the Attorney General is there. But I will tell you that those matters are discrete, and frankly, if I were to say that there are 10 issues, those matters would probably be just 2 of the issues. And so that is why I have been concerned at the length of time that it is taking. Because in my opinion, this could be a simple matter of seeking guidance. If you had a question of constitutional propriety about any aspect, then you seek an opinion and you get that opinion and you're guided accordingly. The heavy lifting on this project had to be done in Nevis, because that is where the project is going to happen. So although the economic impact will cascade into St. Kitts, the truth of the matter is that we expect as a Nevis project that much of what we're going to deal with, housing, economic impact, residents, etc., is on Nevis. And the NIA, that is why the NIA has such extensive consultations with stakeholder groups and with the general public on the matter until we were satisfied. And so this is why I'm not understanding, because the NIA would have been dealing with this matter for several months last year, the latter half of last year. And we sent it to the federal government, to the Attorney General on the 23rd of December, as I've indicated. The government then responded in late January to say they wanted it sent by the Cabinet Secretary. When it was sent in the 23rd of December, it was sent by the legal advisor to the Attorney General. So he wanted it, they preferred for it to be sent from the Cabinet Secretary Nevis to the Cabinet Secretary St. Kitts. So when you hear St. Kitts say that they received it on the 29th of January, it's really the second sending. They're acknowledging that because officially they said that is when they received it from the Cabinet Secretary. I'm not quarreling with that, that's fine. I'm simply saying that even if you count from then, 29th of January, March has gone by, February has gone by, March has gone by, we're now into April. And I'm understanding that you're now saying you're referring the matter to a committee. In fact, I am not even sure whether this committee has already been consecrated. So I know a committee has been invited, but I don't know if the committee has in fact been set up. So you could well be looking at 4, 5, 6 months of delay. And the question is, why? Because the issues are fairly straightforward issues that they have to resolve. And I can say that 2 of the issues was the system for resolution of disputes within the zone. And my understanding is that has been resolved already. And there was a second issue about having a code, of a legal code within the zone. And that issue, I know that several attempts have been made to resolve that issue. So, other than that, Commissioner of Police continues to have jurisdiction, the DPP continues to have jurisdiction, the head of immigration continues to have jurisdiction. So I'm not again, understanding why this lengthy delay. But the Prime Minister is being guided, and so it's a matter for him ultimately. I have to respect the fact that he is the Prime Minister and he would do matters as he sees fit. But in my opinion, the NIA did what was necessary in terms of what I'm calling the heavy lifting on this project, the consultations and all of that. And the matters for SINC is to consider are quite minor in terms of just the number of issues that would arise there. Amendments to the SSE legislation, I too have heard that there's some contemplation, but I'm not quite sure, Mr. Huey, how any amendments in the future are going to impact the project that's submitted now. You know, it's like if the law says that for a driver's license, Mr. Huey will pay $200, and Mr. Huey applies for his driver's license under that law and submits his $200, and is told to wait because the law might be amended. So if they amend the law in 3 months' time and say the charge is now $400, are they going to come back to you and say, you know, must pay $400? That raises some legal issues because you would have applied for an SSZ under the existing legislation as it was, not as it is or maybe come, but as it was. So I'm not even sure what the amendments to the legislation are going to do in relation to this particular project. Future projects, no doubt, but this project has already been submitted. You mentioned it's a Rest Haven property that you're talking about, and it's ironic that you mentioned that because I had a meeting just last week, forgive me, with the former owners, the people from whom the land was taken. And the short answer is we're still not resolved on that matter. The NIA has been paying every month to try and pay down on that debt, but the debt has ballooned over the years to well over 30 million EC dollars on that small piece of land there. And we have been paying on a monthly basis to try and pay down the debt, but the interest continues to accrue. So we are exploring other options to try and settle that matter once and for all. But this is definitely a millstone around the necks of the people of Nevis. And just as I spoke earlier about good policies having good results, so too, Mr. Huey, bad policies and bad actions from government have bad results. Because as I stand here as the Premier of Nevis, on the 30th day of March, 2026, that property was taken compulsorily by the then NRP-led government from the Nisbet family way back in 2007, 2008, and we still cannot find why. No explanation has ever been given as to why that property was compulsorily acquired. The property was just taken. And then like some other 13 pieces of property across Nevis, the NRP government took them and didn't pay for them. So when we got back into office, in 2013, we had to grapple and are still grappling with the realities. We had to pay some people. Those were small amounts, but this particular amount here, this property was assessed at $6-point-something million US. That's what they claim the property was worth. And then, you know, start to pancake interest on that over the years. You know what I'm saying? That is why the bill has ballooned to over 30 million EC dollars. That's a debt, Mr. Huey, that the people of Nevis now owes and has to pay. Foolish decision. I can only call it for what it is. Foolish decision. The result of it, we're still paying for. So people will look at me now and say, you're the Premier, you deal with it. Yes. That's the way government works. But you cannot excuse these types of decisions that are causing tremendous havoc. They say our debt has increased. Well, our debt must increase when you have foolish decisions that burden us with over $30 million of debt. Must increase. What are we to do? And this is the legacy of bad decisions. I'll take any other questions you may have.
Okay, Hewlett, again, just a quick follow-up on Mr. Huey's question about Destiny. Is there any concern that if the federal government or the committee that's supposed to be looking at the NIA Destiny agreement drag this out, that the investors will pull out and look elsewhere?
Well, that, Ms. Hewlett, that is the problem, you know. Investors are signaling quite clearly that they are at a point now where they may have no choice but to leave. That is the reality. And that is what happens when there's inaction, because we understand that other countries, in fact, I read a piece just last week saying that the government of Antigua went back into their parliament to pass amendments to their economic zone legislation. You know, Antigua had a YIDA development, I think they call it. They went back to pass legislation. And I thought the comments from the Honorable Q.T. Benjamin were interesting. He said Antigua is not going to be left behind. Those were his comments. You think Antigua is not watching what's going on down here in Nevis? And we have food down here, plenty full with food, and people hungry around the Caribbean? You think if Destiny pulls up tomorrow, Antigua or someplace else is not going to say, fellas, come and talk to us? That is why I tell you, you know, we have the benefit in this country of some people with opinions, but no consequence. Talk all day. Get on the radio, get on the internet and talk. I have to provide for the people. I have to provide opportunities for our young people. That's my job. And so that is why I'm saying that this Destiny project is such an important project. If that project could kick off here in Nevis, our people go to work. Our backhoe operators, truck operators have work. Our young people have options. Young entrepreneurs can now look to expand their business. We are seeing the possibility for a transformation in the local economy. Then you think about geothermal coming to provide power. One of the problems we had about geothermal is when you generate all this power, how are you going to sell it? Well, look, we have now the option of a large-scale off-taker of power. We have mandated that these people must provide their own electricity, up to 70% of which must be renewable. They must provide their own water. They must provide their own waste management. They must provide their own infrastructure. None of these was ever part of any agreement in the history of the island of Nevis. The Great Four Seasons, which has contributed so much over 35 years, Nevis still provides waste disposal, waste management. Nevis still provides electricity. Nevis still provides water. This development, we have said, the island, you cannot put any burden on the island. You must provide those things for yourself. So the project is a project that is ready to go. Investors, you know, it's the first time, Ms. Hewlett, in my lifetime, that I've heard the argument being made that we don't want any billionaires here. Nevis doesn't want any billionaire investors. But I thought investors were supposed to be people who could actually produce and do the projects that they say they're going to do. Nevis is the only place where the opposition is saying we want poor people to come. Poor investors is what lead to all these unfinished projects because there's not money to finish the projects. If you're going to attract investment, wouldn't you want investors who can do what they need to do and complete? That to me is what investment is all about. So if you're asking me, I'd prefer to attract wealthy investors who have the capacity to complete than what it seems some are saying they want. I hear people making a lot of noise to open up the country to migrants from other areas. Let them come, but close it to investment. How are these migrants going to be provided for? Where are they going to find jobs? So that is why I'm saying, Ms. Hewlett, that I don't have the privilege of opinion without consequence. Some people do. Any other questions for me?
I'm not hogging the mic. My colleagues give me permission to follow up on this question. Do you think that there's some ulterior motive to prevent Nevis from making this developmental leap forward and being the first to have this in the Federation?
Ms. Hewlett, I don't know, and I would not wish to speculate. I think that we would have to just give it time, and as little time, I'm hopeful that we can get this over the line because these investors have already messaged that they can't hang around indefinitely. Right? So I don't know about any ulterior motives, and I won't speculate on that.
Ms. Budgin, Vaughan Radio once more. Is any action being taken to address the erosion at Fort Charles and preserve that historical site? Finally, there was another U.S. strike in the Caribbean Sea last week where 4 people were killed on a fishing boat, quote unquote, alleged drug boat. Now, what message and or measures do you have for fishermen and their families as it comes to their safety while out at sea? Thank you.
Ms. Budgeon, thanks again. Action to address erosion at Fort Charles. The short answer is that we're not in a position financially at this point to do very much there. We have looked at it. I think the Honorable Spencer Brand was tasked with looking at Fort Charles. You are absolutely correct. We're at risk of losing that fort, but the cost to shore it up, so to speak, would be quite significant. Various options have been offered, but I think the option that we prefer would be to build some kind of breakwater, because the difficulty is that the ocean is coming in and the force of the ocean, the force of the wave action is simply eroding. In fact, if you go to that fort from the ocean side, there's a huge cave that has been created under the fort. So it's really only a matter of time, unfortunately, before the fort is going to collapse, because the water keeps carving out this tunnel under the fort itself. We don't have the resources to tackle that at this point, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend that we do. With all the other things that you've talked about, war and fuel cost and all of those things, this government is trying its best to manage the critical things that I think we need to manage, which is to keep our people with lights, water, food, keep our people occupied, having jobs. Those are the things that we are prioritizing, our people. And so I'm hopeful that the wave action doesn't continue at the level that it has been happening, because sometimes, of course, when the seas are rough, you get more of an erosive sort of consequence of those waves from the rough seas. So I'm just hopeful that we can at some point address that, but at this point when I speak to you today, we do not have the financial wherewithal to do anything about that particular Fort Charles. I have not myself heard about any new U.S. strikes on a fishing boat. It's a difficult situation, Ms. Budgeon. What I would say to our fishermen as they go out to exercise care on the ocean, to have their vessels identified as much as possible as fishing vessels, and to not engage in any illegal activity, not engage in transporting any drugs or contraband for anybody, and to go out fishing and come back in fishing. I have not heard of this particular incident, but the question you asked is a very important question. How really do we safeguard ourselves from something that is mistaken or inadvertent? You see, in the world that we hitherto occupied, the world of yesteryear, what would happen is that those fishermen would be arrested. The boats would be searched, and a legal process would happen. Now the fishing boats are being blown up from the sky. We don't even know, because where's the evidence? If a missile or bomb or drone or whatever they use drops on a fishing boat, all we can then rely on is somebody say it was a drug boat, because whatever was on that boat presumably has been blown up as well. So where's the evidence? And that is why the legal processes, difficult and cumbersome as they are at times, are important. Because what would normally happen is that somebody would relay the message to the Coast Guard. There's this vessel that we suspect is a drug boat. The Coast Guard would interdict, search, and when they find drugs, then they charge people, bring them before the court. But this is summary execution. That's what's going on. Can't be correct. Legally, it cannot be correct. Could you imagine what would happen in our country if every time the police suspect that somebody is doing something illegal, they just open fire and execute you? Where's the due process? And here, because of the methodology that is being used, you can't even reconstruct it afterwards. Because the boat is gone, the occupants of the boat are gone, and whatever contraband they may or may not have had, also gone. Because when the bomb or whatever drops, everything is obliterated. So it's almost as if you're putting things backward. You're punishing people, and not just punishing them, you're extracting the ultimate punishment. You are really executing a death penalty on these people who have not been tried or charged with anything. That is the new world that we inhabit. And that's as much as I could say on it. I just beg our fishermen here, go to your usual fishing grounds. Do not involve yourself with any drugs or any contraband. And we pray to God for the best. Because what are we as the Caribbean governments to do? We don't have the wherewithal to launch the armies and the resistance that is necessary to say, this cannot happen, and if you do it again, this is what we are going to do. And so there's a level of impunity in the Caribbean Sea currently, which unfortunately I think has shown us that not even CARICOM has been able to put out a coherent statement in relation to this. It's terribly unfortunate, because those people, whoever they are entitled to due process. They are entitled to due process. And in the United States of America, no matter if somebody is suspected of terrorism, they're suspected of the worst and most heinous crimes, they get a day in court. That is the law. So how then do you leave the United States of America where that is the law, and you come to the Caribbean a few hundred miles away, and once you decide that that's a drug boat, you just blow it up and everybody on it? What if on that drug boat, let us say it is a drug boat, Ms. Budgeon, but what if I happen to be on that boat and I don't know it's a drug boat? Because the boat was at Long Point here in Nevis, and the fellow said they're going to Antigua, and I said, man, give me a ride to Antigua, no? The fellow said, come. I don't know what they have in the hull of the boat. But simply by being around them, that is why the law is important. Because if those people were arrested, brought before court, I could then plead my case and said, I had no knowledge, I simply asked them for a lift to Antigua. But when all of us are blown up out of the sky, well, the innocent and the guilty and everybody gone. That can't be correct, and it cannot be what we want for our region. It just cannot be, because it renders due process a mockery. So that's my view on that, but I just hope that our fishermen remain safe. Anything further for me?
On that same issue, Mr. Brantley, a few months ago I'd asked about CARICOM's response to these issues and having a unified response. We're seeing, at least in one country, Trinidad and Tobago, they concur with what is taking place in our waters with these boats being blasted to oblivion. How then should CARICOM deal with it? Because again, you have the issue of Cuba. Again, we see some division there. Trinidad and Tobago feels that the status quo, as well as Guyana, the status quo in Cuba should change, while the rest of CARICOM is looking to try to send aid while Cuba deals with this crisis. How then should CARICOM approach this? Because you still have the issue of leaders fearful of retribution and fearful of backlash if they somehow seem to disagree with the position of the United States. That's how it is right now. Back to Destiny quickly. We're not quite privy to the terms and conditions, and rightfully so because of the situation at hand. But we've been hearing persons saying in the public domain that there are financial consequences for either the NIA or Destiny, depending on who may renege on the agreement. What is, if any, financial penalties on the part of the NIA if certain things were not fulfilled as outlined in the arrangement? And if for some reason Destiny pulls out because of the fact that the project has not yet been approved, would there be any responsibility on either side financially or otherwise, as it relates to the project?
All right, I could answer that second question very quickly, and the answer is no, because we don't yet have an agreement. No agreement has been signed, and any consequences from the agreement or breaches could only flow once there's an agreement. So currently there's no agreement in place in relation to Destiny. That's what we're saying is delayed.
If there were what would be the
I think we've discussed that. I don't have the agreement in front of me, but I think that there is a formula. I wouldn't want to speculate now because I don't have it. In fact, I have not looked at it in some time. But we have discussed that publicly, I think at a town hall meeting or two, where those numbers were laid out. I think there was a formula dealing with how much they would have spent up to that point of the breach. And then on the other side, there was a formula which was about $75 million US or something if they were the ones in breach. So something along those lines, Mr. Huey. But if you go back and look at those town halls, we discussed that. That was discussed fully. But at this juncture, there is no consequence because we do not yet have an agreement. CARICOM's response, my simple response to you on that is that CARICOM should seek, wherever possible, to build consensus and to have a consistent position. It is unfortunate that some of the leadership in CARICOM is publicly sounding a discordant note. But I think that CARICOM must look at this in the long term. We just had the 50th meeting of heads in St. Kitts. It says to me that CARICOM has been around for a very long time. And CARICOM, I'm hopeful, will be around for an even longer time. Prime ministers, presidents, they come and go. And so CARICOM just needs, I think, to have a consistent position as CARICOM. And where some members are not in agreement, CARICOM can have a majority position of CARICOM. But that position must be based on principle. And I have just, for example, spoken about the rule of law, due process. That's a principle that is known and has been known from time immemorial. Due process. A man must have his day in court. A man has a right to be heard. Those things, I think, go back as far as the Magna Carta. So the idea now that people are being blown up on suspicion, because that's all it could be. Well, none of us should share that. Because what if it were to happen in Trinidad, or Jamaica, or St. Kitts Nevis? We must stand on principle. And so for me, even though we don't have a military response or we don't have the economic might to respond, we have, and there is weight, as the world has shown, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Nelson Mandela to Jesus Christ himself, that there's weight in having a moral position and a morally upright position in relation to some of these matters. So, Mr. Huey, it may not be something that dissuades the great United States from their approach. But I would hope that 10, 15, 20 years from now, when these current figures have all faded away, that a person like you, you're still young, so you'll still be around. You'll be able to look back and say, CARICOM took a principled position. And even where some members of CARICOM were not in accord with that position, that CARICOM's majority took a principled position. And so that's as best as I could offer you on that. Anything further for me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. It is just edging up to 12:20, so we've been here for a solid 2 hours plus. I want to thank you for the opportunity again to come and to converse with you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next month's press conference. I've been trying to get them scheduled so we're not at the end of the month, but unfortunately sometimes the pressures prevent us. I want to end by apologizing to members of the press. We had initially scheduled this press conference for tomorrow, but in the middle of our preparation, we got word that the National Assembly in St. Kitts was meeting tomorrow. And so I thank you all for coming because we had to quickly rearrange a press conference for today so that it doesn't clash with the National Assembly. So thank you very much. And again, thank you for coming.